Welcome to the Compass One podcast series at the Vizient Connection Summit. Today, we're discussing creating a winning partnership model. I'm Katie Leo, Senior Director, Client Relations at Sg2, a Vizient company. Please welcome our guests today, Tom Funk, Executive Vice President at Compass One Health. Tom oversees strategy, data, analytics, marketing, and communications. Dudley Poppens, Senior Vice President of Sales at Compass One Health. Dudley has been with Compass One for 16 years and has 43 years in the healthcare industry. And Amit Sharma, Senior Principal at Sg2, and also runs the consulting practice at Sg2. So I know that all of you have conversations with hospital leaders on a daily basis. How are the current market conditions impacting hospitals today? Tom, let's start with you.
As people think the pandemic is over, we're still facing the same challenges. So the burnout is a word you hear all the time. That's real. And when you look at our partners at the C-suite level, there's constant change. So as we start to make change and evolve with what's going on in the industry, the challenge we're facing, and I think many of our partners, is just the churn, the burnout, but also the turnover of our folks. So if we set a strategy or we set a path forward, 6-12 months later, we may be partnering with someone else. And that's a real challenge for us to make change.
Hospitals and health systems are really challenged by just the kind of sustainability of the current model. And one of the things we've talked about with our clients is, the day of being all things to all people is not sustainable anymore. And organizations have to kind of pick a path, be different, be unique, have a value prop, and we're seeing a lot of systems struggle and be challenged by that, and the workforce piece and the financial piece and the challenges around capacity just exacerbate that struggle.
Well, I think Amit referenced the financial headwinds. I mean, when you're running next to nothing margin, it's difficult to invest in growth, and it's really difficult to do the kinds of improvements that I think most of these clients would like to be able to accomplish. So I think the financial headwinds are huge. I think there are others around workforce, that sort of thing, that continue to sort of pull back on the ability to grow the business in the way they want. And I think finally, and this is part of what we're really sort of focusing on now, are these changes in systems of care. The system of care is probably one of my favorite frames of reference because it's such a visual representation of a health system. But as the move to the outpatient side comes more and more heavily, as they begin to look at different ways to serve disparate patient populations and so forth, we've got to be on our toes too in order to be able to serve them as best we can.
How are these market conditions affecting the priorities of health systems?
So it's interesting, given what's happened over the last few years, that as a health system, you could conceivably have 25 or 30 things you have to work on as an organization. And as we think about how successful organizations, get through what they need to work through, it's actually about focusing on fewer things and fewer priorities and doubling down on clinical care, quality, safety, volumes, financials, and really focusing on your core clinical business as where you need to spend your time as a hospital leadership team and an executive team. And to the point that Dudley made on the systems of care, as the center of gravity in healthcare today moves outside of the hospital, it gets even harder to prioritize and focus because you've got the acute care business, you've got the ambulatory business, and a lot of pressures. But what we've seen organizations do, the organizations that do well focus on 3 to 5 things and acknowledge they cannot do 25 things. And that's where partnerships and other organizations and teams and vendors, to provide support along those lines. And that's critical to success in today's environment.
Now getting to Compass One, what is the role of strategic support services like Compass One in an environment like this? Let's start with Dudley.
Yeah, so I think, I love the word strategic, by the way. So thank you for that. But I think for us, this is a bit of an evolution. We're typically hired opportunistically in order to solve a very particular problem at a very particular time. And I think we are operationally really, really good at solving that problem. Where we stop short is at continuing to grow, kind of along this continuum of, okay, your transaction, now you're sort of in this middle partner phase where you might or might not grow, to this very strategic partnership, which is such an important piece for all of us to grow into. So I think we can do more than just the base service lines. That's the big thing here, is that the table stakes are doing those basic services really well. You can't do anything from a growth perspective until you do it right. Once the base is in place, though, we should be able to accelerate. And I think that's a collaborative effort between us and our clients in order to be able to get to that next level and continue to drive the process forward. And what it should lead us to is that we should be a much bigger, better sort of outsourcing model that's focused on the things that matter today, and we're starting to pivot to where it's headed tomorrow. And then the patient experience along with the caregivers, I think that's the other piece we have to pivot even harder towards.
Yeah, I mean, at Compass One, when you take a step back, we're about 66,000 associates. And that's today. And we're still roughly 15 to 18% short-staffed in our hourly staffing ranks. And we've quickly realized over the last 24 months, the folks that left healthcare, aren't coming back anytime soon. And so what we've had to really do to really execute on a lot of what Dudley said is we can't replace everyone with robots, at least today, or AI, not quite yet today. And we really had to really focus on that in our core competencies around people and getting back to the basics around recruiting, hiring quickly, speed to market in terms of getting them hired and getting them trained is more critical now than before. We've had to really take a hard look at our standard operating procedures around those things and really put a greater focus on not just taking care of patients, but really taking care of our people. And so we've really focused on creating a better employee engagement model, a better employee experience model. With all that too, we are looking at technologies to replace that 10, 15% of folks that we don't have. We've had to become more efficient. We've had to become more lean. And we're taking care of more patients. And we don't see that equation changing. And so it's a combination of getting the blocking and tackling done in terms of recruiting, hiring, and retaining folks, and then looking at creative ways to implement and integrate technology that'll supplement that short staffing challenge we will probably always have.
Are we a vendor or are we a partner? And I think health systems today, more than ever, are looking for a partner. And the definition of partner and the execution of going from vendor to partner is a lot easier said than done. It takes time, it takes resources, it takes effort, it takes commitment, but there's real payoff there as you think about the value of a partner for strategic support services compared to a vendor where you're kind of in that cost equation game, and that's the race to the bottom, and that's a tough place to be. But our clients are looking for folks that are aligned with them at the highest levels about the strategy of the organization, and then I think more importantly, how does that strategy alignment turn into account management and the personalization and the commitment of resources to see that account every single day and see it through every single day, both in terms of people, but also in terms of technology and resources to support that. Our hospitals and health system clients, they're struggling with a lot on the clinical front. Not that they don't need to worry about the non-clinical, but they should have trust that that's taken care of and that their partners are managing that. And if there's an issue, they'll bring it forth. They don't have to ask about what's going on. They should know exactly what's going on at all times.
What does this mean for self-operated hospitals? Can Compass One really do it better?
Of course we can. I think to several of Amit's points and a number of Dudley's is with everything that our partners in these health systems are facing outside of support services, we're trying to have conversations around being more of a strategic partner. And through that, we're trying to focus on what their core business is and allow us to help them where we are great and where our core businesses are. And so we're seeing incredible, through a lot of the work that our partnership with Sg2 is driving, we're finding insights into where we operate environmental services. We're seeing better outcomes around infectious disease control versus self-operated hospitals. Again, that might sound like a quick data point when you kind of follow that thread, if we're able to deliver those type of outcomes, that will ultimately allow our clinical care providers, our nurses, to operate at the top of their license, because they're not worrying about those things. They're not cleaning the rooms because they're partners, internal partners, where it's self-operated are or aren't doing it. That's our job. And we've got incredible insights and data points that help support that. On the food side, same thing. When you look at our expense control, Dudley mentioned financial headwinds. When you're at the size and scope of our healthcare arm, Morrison, we can provide not just cost savings, but efficiencies, expertise. I think to steal a line from Dudley, it's not about being efficient, it's about being effective. Sorry if I stole one of your lines, Dudley, from later, but I think the combination of those things, I think, is how we can help provide more value to a self-operated hospital, and they're struggling today. We know that. And so if we can get in the door and have the conversation, I think to Amit's point of at the right level, more of a strategic level, not a transactional conversation, I think we can make a huge impact for them.
Great segue to our next question. I'm going to start with Dudley for this one. Efficiency has long been a focus for support services, but what about enabling the effectiveness of clinical support teams? Efficient doesn't always mean effective. Can you comment on that?
Efficiency tends to leave you with the impression of lowest possible price, right? That's what it feels like. And in many cases, unfortunately, it is, because it's not the most effective result over a long period of time, whether it is on the financial side, the experience side, the caregiver side. It typically long-term costs more to make a very short-term financial decision today. So I think we need to help educate folks to look at the long-term value, the outcomes, the KPIs that we're going to drive. And that's part of the whole data piece. We have to start really taking a look and digging deep so that we understand how we're operating our business in order to drive better KPIs for folks. So I think, we've done some really fun work with Sg2. It's been terrific. And we've got some different examples, such as our EVS programs are supporting the clinical staff in a way that results in a 22% reduction in hospital nurse turnover. And this is validated and vetted information. So, the partnership between the clinical team and Compass One is reducing the HAI burden by 3%. Plus, we're seeing greater efficiency in our STAR accounts as well, and the efficiency is translating to effectiveness. So when you kind of think about those two frames of reference, there's reductions for certain, but they're not financial reductions per se. These are really us being very, very effective with the right resources in place.
What about cultural integration? Is this important?
I think it is. And I think, to me, cultural integration is not a do it once and then dust that off in 3 years. It's a regular touch point. It's a regular conversation about what's working, what's not working, understanding the values of the organization. How does it align with how we do, how as a providers, support services, how we do business. And it's got to be a regular dialogue. And I think that's part of building a partnership is there's got to be an investment of time by leaders from both organizations to say, where do we fit? Where's there resonance? Where's there some disconnect? And investing to work through that, because you're never going to find a perfect match, but it's about putting the effort in to figure it out and find kind of common ground, an understanding and a path forward. And so I think cultural alignment is really important. And what that does is it sets kind of the framework for how you would manage an account, right? If the C-suite of an organization is only focused on dollars and cents, that helps you think through how that account's going to be managed. And I'm sure dollars and cents are important in every case, but if there are other attributes and other elements, you can craft your account management and planning approach to meet with kind of where the organization is culturally and how they react and respond.
Yeah, so I happen to agree with Amit. First of all, I don't think that any of them are the same, right? There's no template that you layer over the top and you suddenly are a match. But I do think reading the tea leaves really efficiently and effectively is important. There are organizations that will be utterly financially driven, And we need to be able to respond to them in a way that lets them see we understand their pain. There are others who are very much in a growth mode, if you will, who are looking for that next great iteration of themselves. That's a different kind of alignment than with the person that's focused solely on the money side of it. But I think wrapped up in all of this is the importance of our ability to have the right programs, having the right systems, and having the data to support the assertions that we make through our proposals and our contracts and as we begin to work together. Because at the end of the day, I think much of culture is trust. And they need to trust that we're going to deliver.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I get most around culture is around our people. And as we win and are awarded a contract or kicking off a partnership or even existing partnerships, our approach is I would say, a bit of a synthetic self-op model. It's not about Compass One, it's about their brand. So whether it's the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic where we have partners, we want our folks to feel like they work for them. Granted, they do work for us, we get that part, but we partner with the hospital leadership, the HR teams from our teams and the systems teams to help drive that cultural integration. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we want them to be proud to work for Compass One, but we want them to be really proud to work within the community where they live and taking care of some of their friends, patients, and family, and feel like they're a part of something bigger. And I think when we lean into that, to the earlier question around workforce, we see the highest levels of engagement with our people, and we see the lowest levels of turnover. So where we have partners that bring us into the fold, so to speak, and allow our teams to feel like they're as much as part of their family as our company, the outcomes are twice as good almost. And the biggest pain point that we face is employee turnover, period. And if we're able to partner and integrate our cultures together with health systems, it just generates incredible outcomes and ultimately delivers a better patient experience.
I have one more question for you. If all three of you could just comment on any final thoughts on what to look for in a winning partnership, that would be great.
Well, I think it's for us, as we've grown to the size we have, we're still trying to unlock our economies of scale. And we've quickly been able to kind of pivot and really focus on how to bring them forward to our clients. And that, I think, leveraging those tools we have will help drive those outcomes they want, whether it's financially driven or driving for more cost efficiencies. But I think that leveraging our economy of scale as the leading company in our space is critically important. And we've probably typically shied away from talking about that. We operate within 2,400 hospitals across the country.
2,652.
Thank you, Dudley.
To be precise.
But when you think about what that means to a individual health system, think about what comes with our insights, the data, the dashboards that Dudley talks about. We have more insights around how to take care of patients and drive patient experience than anyone else, just because of our sheer touch and scale and scope. And so what I would say is people are facing these challenges. They're not in it alone. Leverage us more. And again, maybe a broken record here, but move us out of the basement. We're not a vendor. We can be a strategic partner. And when leveraged correctly, we can add incredible value to a healthcare system or systems.
So I probably won't be as articulate as Tom. But, so I'm going to speak to this in a more forward-thinking, positive way.
That was positive.
You were positive.
Okay.
But I think there are examples now today. We work with some folks even today who have said, the outsourcing thing is fine, but it's not really what we want from you. We want to grow technology. We want to commercialize technology with you. That's pretty interesting coming to an outsourcing company, that does housekeeping and food, right? I mean, it's a whole different mindset. And there are 3 or 4 other examples like that. We work with a client who said, I need to build a brand. I need to change the brand I have today, build a new brand, and I want food to be an integral part of it. That's a different kind of conversation, right? And so I think there are really, really good green sprouts out there where we're starting to see people view us differently. And I hope that, anyone who listens to this, I hope they'll take a minute just to sort of say, maybe there's more to this than just, I hate to say this, just support services. There was more there.
For me, it's about elevating above the table stakes and understanding that the table stakes are kind of what gets you in the door and in the conversation. And you've got to be top flight across that with no gaps, just because that's where the expectation is. And then it's the willingness to be, even as a big company, the willingness to be creative, the willingness to try new things, the willingness to pivot and test, fail fast, and meet the client where they are. And if they're moving kind of the cheese or moving the needle, just find a way to go along for the ride and figure it out. And I think that the willingness to go along for the ride and figure it out means a lot when hospitals and health systems are struggling in so many different ways and trying to figure their own way. That investment towards a partnership and that time and resource, that's substantial.
This concludes our Compass One podcast at the Vizient Connection Summit. I wish you all luck tonight at the tables.